Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive.
Oh.
Today we're going to be taking a look at the Wicked Witch of the West,
Oh, yeah.
and specifically how she's evolved over time.
Yeah.
From this kind of like one-dimensional villain in the original Wizard of Oz book
Right.
to the much more complex character that we see in the musical Wicked.
Yeah. It's really quite remarkable.
And to help guide us through all of this, we'll be looking at this book, The Untold Origins of Wicked, from the Wizard of Oz to Maguire's masterpiece.
I love that book.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating.
It really is. So to start, let's go all the way back to the beginning to L. Frank Baum's book.
Okay.
When you first meet the Wicked Witch in that book, she's pure evil.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no nuance to her.
Yeah.
She's just this obstacle for Dorothy to overcome.
Right. And she really embodies that classic fairy tale villain,
Yeah,
you know?
right.
Totally.
Just very, very straightforward.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I always found interesting about her in the book is that she's got this really, surprising weakness.
Yeah, that whole water thing.
Yeah, the water.
It's kind of strange.
And it leads to this really kind of anticlimactic ending. She doesn't
Right.
die in this big epic battle or anything. It's just
Just a splash of water, and that's it.
yeah. Which, it makes you wonder, what was Baum going for there?
Yeah, I mean, you'd think for such an iconic villain, he'd have come up with something a little more dramatic.
Exactly.
But I guess you have to remember the context. This was the early 1900s,
Right.
fairy tales back then. They were pretty straightforward,
Yeah.
good versus evil, not a lot of nuance.
Yeah, that makes sense. But then we get to the 1939 film,
Oh, yes.
and the Wicked Witch as we know her
Right.
really comes to life on screen.
That's when she becomes iconic.
Yeah, Margaret Hamilton's performance is just incredible.
Oh, she's amazing. That cackle, that green skin.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of those visual elements
Yeah.
that we associate with her now weren't actually in the book.
Really?
Like the green skin, that was something they added for the film.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it was a creative choice that they made,
Interesting.
and it really stuck. And I think it's interesting, too, how the film gave her a much clearer motivation with the ruby slippers.
Oh, yeah. Suddenly, she's not just evil for the sake of being evil.
Right,
She wants something specific.
exactly. And it gives her...
Raises the stakes.
Yeah, and it gives her character a bit more depth,
Mm.
right? It's not just about power anymore. It's about possessing this very tangible object.
Right, those ruby slippers. Everyone understands
That
them.
makes her a little bit more relatable, in a way.
Yeah, because we all want things. We all have desires.
Exactly. So from this one-dimensional villain in the book, she becomes this much more visually striking and even somewhat relatable character in the film.
The power of film, right.
Yeah. But before we get to Gregory Maguire and how he completely reinvented her, we should probably talk about how the Wicked Witch was portrayed on stage and in parodies.
Oh, yeah. There have been so many different interpretations.
Right. And she's been played for laughs. She's been given bigger roles. There's The Wiz, for example.
Oh, yeah. I love The Wiz.
It's so much fun. And the Wicked Witch in that is just over the top campy.
very theatrical.
Yeah. And it's funny because it seems like we almost have this need to laugh at the villains that we fear.
It's true. Like by making fun of them, we're somehow taking away their power a little bit.
Right. Exactly. Making them less threatening.
Right. More human.
But then we get to Gregory Maguire
Yeah.
and his novel Wicked. And he completely changes the game.
Yeah, he flips the script.
He does.
Huh.
He takes this character, the Wicked Witch, and he turns her into Elphaba, this complex, sympathetic...
You start to see her side of the story.
You do. We learn about her childhood, the fact that she was born with green skin, the prejudice that she faced. And it makes you realize that maybe she's not so wicked after all.
Right. She's a product of her environment.
And it makes you wonder, how did Maguire take this one-dimensional villain and turn her into someone that we actually root for?
It's brilliant, isn't it?
It really is. And I think it says a lot about our own fascination with villains.
Right.
Like, we're not content with simple bad guys anymore. We want to understand them. We want to see their humanity.
We want to know what makes them tick.
Exactly. And Maguire gives us that with Elphaba.
He really does.
He gives us a glimpse behind the curtain, and it changes everything.
Yeah, you start to see the world through her eyes.
Yeah. And it makes you question everything you thought you knew about the story,
Yeah.
about good and evil, about the Wicked Witch herself.
It's a powerful story.
It really is. And it's just the beginning of Elphaba's journey. So let's take a closer look at how Maguire really fleshed out her character and how he created this incredibly tragic and thought-provoking story.
Okay, let's do it. You know, one of the things that Maguire does so well is he leans into the tragedy of Elphaba's story.
Yeah, right from the start, how it's all going to end.
Right. We know she's destined to become the Wicked Witch.
Yeah, and it makes you read the whole thing with this sense of, like, dread almost.
Yeah, you keep hoping that maybe things will turn out differently, but deep down, you know they won't.
Exactly. And it's heartbreaking at times, especially when you see how hard she tries to be good.
To do the right thing.
Yeah, and to make the world a better place. But it's like fate is working against her.
It really makes you think about the whole nature of destiny. Like, was she always going to end up as the villain? Or did the choices that she made, did those seal her fate?
That's a good question. It's like, if you were in her shoes, facing the same kind of prejudice and betrayal,
Yeah.
would you make different choices?
It's hard to say, right? We all like to think we'd be the hero of our own story.
Yeah, but life is rarely that simple.
And Maguire doesn't shy away from that complexity.
Nope. He really forces you to confront the gray areas of morality.
To think about what it really means to be good or evil.
And then there's the way she dies.
Oh, yeah, it's not what you'd expect.
No grand battle. No final showdown with Dorothy.
Just a freak accident.
It almost feels unfair.
Yeah, like the universe just decided to play a cruel joke on her.
And it makes you wonder if maybe we've been judging her all wrong.
Exactly. I mean, in traditional fairy tales, the villain's death is supposed to be this moment of triumph, right?
Yeah, good conquers evil.
But with Elphaba, it just leaves you feeling sad.
And a little bit empty.
Because you realize that maybe she wasn't really wicked after all.
Just misunderstood.
And a victim of circumstance.
And then, of course, we have the musical Wicked.
Which takes all of those themes and amplifies them.
Yeah, it really leans into the emotional aspects of Elphaba's story.
And her relationship with Glinda.
Oh, yeah. Their friendship is just so central to the whole thing.
It shows you how even the most different people can find common ground.
And how our differences can actually make us stronger.
Exactly. And it's all set to this amazing music.
And Defying Gravity, come on. That song is just iconic.
It's an anthem for anyone who's ever felt like an outsider.
Anyone who's ever dared to be different.
And it perfectly captures that spirit of rebellion that's so core to Elphaba's character.
And then there's that line from the musical, "No one mourns the wicked."
Until they know your story.
Such a powerful message.
It's a reminder to never judge someone until you've walked a mile in their shoes.
Exactly. Because we all have our own stories, our own struggles.
And our own reasons for making the choices that we make.
And Wicked really forces you to think about that.
To look beyond the labels.
And to see the humanity in everyone, even the so-called villains.
And I think that's one of the reasons why it's become such a phenomenon.
Yeah, it's more than just a retelling of The Wizard of Oz.
It's a story that speaks to something deep within us.
Our desire for connection, for understanding, for a world where we're not so quick to judge each other.
And it's a story that continues to resonate with audiences all over the world.
And it makes you realize that sometimes the best stories are the ones that challenge our perceptions.
And make us question everything we thought we knew.
About ourselves.
Yeah.
About the world. And about the nature of good and evil.
Exactly. And I think Wicked has done that for countless people.
But before we wrap things up completely, I think it's worth talking about. You know, the bigger picture. Like, what does the enduring popularity of Wicked tell us about our culture?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. It really does make you think, why is this story, why has it resonated with so many people for so long?
Yeah, it's more than just a good story.
Right. Right. I think it speaks to, I don't know, something deeper. Like maybe we're all just a little bit tired of the simple good versus evil narratives.
Yeah, like we're starting to realize that the world is a lot more complicated than that.
Exactly. And Wicked really embraces that complexity.
And I think people are drawn to that.
It feels more real, more relatable.
Especially now when everything feels so divided.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like everyone's picking sides, and there's no room for nuance.
And Wicked is all about nuance. It's about seeing the world from different perspectives, understanding that even the people we disagree with might have their own reasons for believing what they believe.
And that maybe, just maybe, we have more in common than we realize.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, you know, what would L. Frank Baum, the guy who wrote the original Wizard of Oz,
Yeah.
what would he think of all this?
I don't know. It's funny to think about, right?
Yeah. Like he created this very straightforward children's story.
With this, classic fairy tale villain.
And now, all these years later, that villain has become this cultural icon, this symbol of complexity and sympathy.
It just goes to show you the power of stories, right?
Yeah, how they can evolve and change over time and take on new meanings.
And how they can continue to speak to us, even generations later.
And I think that's a big part of what makes Wicked so special.
It's a story that keeps on giving.
And it makes you think, if we were all transported to Oz,
Okay.
what side would we be on?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Would we be Team Glinda? All about the light and the good?
Popular crowd?
Yeah, or would we be Team Elphaba?
Fighting for what we believe in, even if it means going against the grain.
Even if it means being labeled as wicked.
I think I know which side I'd be on.
Me too. But that's a discussion for another time.
Right.
For now, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into Oz.
Okay.
But as always, this is just the beginning. We encourage you to keep exploring the story of Wicked, whether it's through the book, the musical, or even just by thinking about the themes that we've talked about today.
There's so much to discover.
And who knows? You might even find yourself defying gravity in your own way.
Ooh, I like that.
Well, that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And until next time, keep on exploring.